drawing shoes right now. Very exciting. Because I was supposed to have already been done with this turnaround by today, but I had to make like a deadline with those washi tapes, so I'm working on these instead now. But anyways, yeah, shoes are trendy right now. Everyone lives into sneakers all of a sudden, so enjoy my sneakers, I guess. Oh my god, I've literally never had this many people in any of my streams before, so hi everyone! Alright, well if there's this many people secretly watching and not saying anything, then I'll just try to narrate what I'm doing. So, hi there, welcome to my stream. I am working on some character turnarounds right now. Hi Tony! Because I am gonna be working on a comic for like the next year or so. This is like a huge ass project that I'll be working on. So and yeah, I mentioned a little earlier, but I was already supposed to have been done with this turnaround, but I got caught up because I had another deadline that I had to make first, and I was also moving, so there's been a lot going on lately, but it's okay. So, yeah, just so everyone knows, I'm not gonna only be working on, like, turnarounds for, like, all 3 days. I do have, like, some, pages from the first chapter sketched out, which I was planning on working on, but I just want to work on the turnaround first. So my webcomic is a supernatural romance, and I like that. So my comp titles would be like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind meets Twin Peaks. I know that sounds really weird, but and then if you just make that like really cute, I guess that's like my comic. But the overall plot is basically about like 2 college students who are investigating like a sort of local urban legend sort of, and they kind of get sucked into this weird place. It's still very hard for me to describe this story, and I'm like the one who made it. But you know, that's how it is. It was basically just a product of me like listening to a lot of music and just like writing down whatever I hallucinated, whatever, when I'm listening. So Twin Bay about the comic format. So what a lot of people do, and what I'm planning on doing too, is like you draw the comic completely for paper and print first, because print is a lot more restricting, and it also requires you to draw it at like a super high resolution. So like you should draw it, I think, at bare minimum 300, but most people recommend like at least 350 for color and 600 for grayscale. While web is only like 72 dpi. So basically by drawing it for print, you're already drawing it at like more than like 4 times the resolution that you would be for web. So if you draw something for web and decide to print it, like you literally can't. You'll have to redraw the whole thing. But if you redraw if you draw something for print, you can always shrink it. So that's what for example Spaceboy does. It's completely formatted for print, and then he just took the panels and laid it out in a webcomic format. And it's really easy to do that. You literally just like copy and paste all the panels so it's like vertically, and like you can move the speech bubbles around and stuff. So it's it does take some time. Like, some people, they literally just copy and paste their comic pages onto webtoons and they don't format it at all, which I don't recommend because it can be really hard to read the text when it's shrunken that small. And I mean, it does take some time to format a comic from print to webtoons, but it's like, I think it's worth it, and honestly, it's like, it's not like that much work. Advice on the first episode of a comic. So I really think that like your first chapter is basically gonna be people's first impression of of your story in general. So you want to make a good impression, and you want to introduce your characters really well. And ideally, most people actually recommend that you start by throwing people into the action, which is why you often get like movies that start with like a chase scene and then like they explain the setting later, because you want to draw your audience in with the action. And then you can do like a flashback later. And that's actually like, I'm just saying that because that's what I did in my comic. Like, my comic kind of throws you in and then explains to you later. So that's definitely something first. I would definitely recommend also making sure like people understand like who your characters are, even if it's just their personality and their overall relationship to each other. And I think you'd want to at least be able to understand roughly what the setting is. Like, none of these are like hard rules though. Like, you know, you can always break all these rules, but when you do, you want to be kind of mindful of like why. Like, you want to do it intentionally. Alright, so here I'm just working on a more refined sketch of my character. So usually like my first sketch is mostly for overall like gesture and like pose, just getting the pose right. And then I do like a second sketch that's meant to be for things like anatomy and structure. And sometimes I have to do like another sketch layer on top if something is like really stumping me. So I usually do that for like hands or you know, like hair or something. Like, I'll probably have to do it for her hair. Although, I don't know, from this angle you can't really see it, so maybe I won't. So, yeah. I'm like really jealous of artists who just like touch their pen to the paper and it's just immediately like, alright, I'm done. Like, that's my final image, and I'm just like, what? I have to do like 8 layers. Twin mate, what influences your style? So many things, but I think ultimately it just came down to whatever I liked when I was a kid in high school. So I think my number one influence would probably honestly just be like Ken Sugimori style. Cause he, like, just all the like Pokemon art, cause that's just like how I learned to draw people, is by drawing Pokemon characters. But specifically also like I read a lot of manga, so and especially I was obsessed with the Pokemon manga. I was like much more into that than the actual games, even though I really like the games too. But the manga is really, really fun, and I really recommend it. But I was also really into the Zelda manga. I'm like going between both pronunciations, I'm sorry. So the Zelda manga is by like 2 women, and their like pseudonym together is Akira Himekawa. And their art style is super cute and appealing. Especially, I really love the art style in the Minish Cap manga. It's super, super cute. Everyone has like giant eyes. And like Zelda has these like really long like side bang lock things that are like flowing and beautiful. So that's a big influence. Hiromu Arakawa, who made Full Metal Alchemist, is also a big influence. And I would say, as for like non-Japanese artists, I really, really love Gendy Tartakovsky's work. So he, the one who did Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, and Symbiotic Titan, which I think probably influenced my work, like my my like adult art style the most out of like any artist, I think. And I think maybe more recently, I was basically trying to copy the art styles of like people who worked in the industry when I was in college. And my art style just kind of went through this really weird, like, uncanny valley period where it just kind of looked like it was trying too hard to be something that it wasn't, you know? And it just, like, was kind of weird and looked bad. And then, like, I started watching Voltron, and I was like, you know what? Like, these are the people who, like, I grew up, like, seeing drawing anime on DeviantArt, and I thought none of them would get jobs, and they all did, and they're all working on something really cool just by drawing anime. So screw this, I'm just gonna draw whatever I want, and that's basically so I'd say like my current art style is a little influenced by like Voltron's, just because I was like, hey, you can be influenced by anime and work in the American animation industry, holy moly. So that's like my more recent influence, and there's probably some more, but these are like the most obvious ones. I used to be just so like, honestly, like I feel like I used to like not like slice of life and romance because I thought like they were like cringy because of like art school gatekeeping old men. And then I started reading them and I'm like, oh, I actually really like them. Like actually, so my comic is like technically, why am I even saying technically? Like my comic does have romance elements in it, and like for the longest time, I tried convincing myself that it didn't. I was like, no, it's not a romance. Like, no, it's not. No, it's like so much more, you know. It's like, you know, it's more than a romance. Okay, and then I started reading like romance comics, and I'm like, yo, these are really good. Why was I so embarrassed? And like, but I literally had to go through this like you know, this sort of like coping and acceptance of like, oh my god, I'm writing a romance. I can't believe this. I feel so disgusting. And yeah. Okay, next question. Can you tell us a bit about your comic making process? So yeah, I can actually open up my Banana in Beijing comic and show you a little bit of that. Okay, so this is my comic Banana in Beijing, and basically what I did first is I typed out a whole script on Google Docs. It was pretty simple, and then I did like really scratchy drawings using just like on paper, and they were like really tiny. I don't even have photos of them or anything because they're like so small and only I can understand them. And that's like I think most artists do start that way using thumbnails. I'm gonna look for like a random page from here to show the process from. I'll just do like the opening page. So here we go. I'll hide all this. So like here you can actually see like my my like initial layout. I thought it was gonna be like a 4-panel, which it ended up not being because it like didn't. It looked too skinny. The funny thing is, like, when I was sketching on paper, the paper was supposed to be, like, I accidentally measured the proportions wrong, so it ended up being, like, the complete wrong dimensions, which is why, like, when I copied and pasted it onto, like, my actual comics page, it looked really weird. So I ended up going, like, resketching on top of it. And, let's see, I think, yeah, this is, like, my sketch. Oh, dear. My other sketch, I think, is inside my panel. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, it kind of looks something like this. So I have to like turn off and on all these layers. So yeah, this is like what my sketch looked like. And oh man, these are like really messy to me because I have to like sketch a million times over it. Yeah, and then I like did like a ton of like, I always do like several layers of sketches too, so like this is like my original, and then I also did like another layer here on top and like another one here. I was like not expecting to show these files to anyone, so they're like really badly organized. But yeah, so this is like what my sketch looked like for this panel, and then I inked on top of it. But before I ink, usually the first thing I do when I start sketching is actually doing all the text first. And I do all of the panels first in Clip Studio Paint too. And then yeah, alright, let me just, I like don't remember which layers I turned on and off, but you get the gist of it. Yeah, and once I do the lines, then I put the tones on top. Let me try to find, okay. Oh no. Okay, here we go. This is like the final product. But yeah, that's my overall process. And for my current comic, I'm pretty much going to do the same thing, but it has color. So, you know, I'll just show you guys the comic right now. Okay, this is like my first chapter. It's like also like really messy. I think it's probably messier than Banana's roughs were, but so for this, because it was like kind of important, the lighting was really important. I kind of just did that in my roughs. But yeah, here we go. So this is like what I have. So like you can see, I already did all the text and the boxes before I started anything, just so I could get it close to final as possible. And yeah. My plot took a really long time to put together, because I feel like I came up with the original plot like 5 years ago. Yeah, I personally do my text like as early as possible. Like as soon as I get a hold of like my digital file, I put into text. Sorry, I'm like answering 2 questions at once. But yeah, H. Thompson Design. Yeah, I do the text first. Some people do the text last, but I recommend doing it first because it will affect your composition, and I can try to find an example. Yeah, or I think like a panel like this one, like the like these bubbles, they take up so much room. They take up like half the panel, and before I like put in the text, like this panel was like really small, and then as I started typing it, I was like, oh my god, this text takes up a ton of room, so I'm gonna have to put it up on here. So yeah, that kind of stuff definitely affects that stuff. I keep saying stuff. Okay, alright, I will try to answer the questions in order. So Zoomini, how did you put together your plot? Yeah, basically I came up with the original story like several years ago. That's like when I first started working like on this idea. And that was just sort of like I kind of mentioned, I got my first ideas, and I get a lot of my comic ideas this way actually, is just by like listening to music, and like sometimes like just like cool stuff pops in my head and I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, I want to draw that. Or I'll just come up with a concept and I'll do that. So this comic, I actually started off with like a very specific sort of like mood that I wanted to give off first, and then I worked on the story after, which was really hard. Like this story took me forever to get to a point where I was like comfortable moving forward with it. But then once I decided I wanted to work on it, I like kind of sat down regularly and like banged it out. So I basically wrote a first draft of the story like several years ago, and I really didn't like it. I wasn't happy with it, and I knew that it just wasn't right, and I kind of just put it down for a while. And that was like right during my my senior year of college anyway, so I had to focus on, you know, thesis and finding a job and whatever. Yeah, I put the story aside for a few years, and I only picked it up about a year ago, and when I did, I basically dedicated 3 months to just rewriting the entire story from start to finish, and like writing a first pass script of the whole thing. And then during that time, I would just like go through the thing, like pick out parts of the plot that I thought didn't make sense, and just like work on it all in order. And I just really refined the story over and over again. until I found something I liked. And yeah, that's basically how I came to the plot. And like I often like had to like rearrange things in the plot, like the order of it, so it'd make more sense. And yeah. But actually, one of the biggest things I'd recommend in art school would actually be to like, oh my god, look at artists like that aren't just artists like your school shows you, and like expand your horizon. Because like chances are, if your art school experience was like mine and like a lot of other people's, like art school professors tend to have like a very specific type of art that they like. Especially like a lot of art school professors are from like a very specific generation. And they might be even from like a specific, depending on your major, right? Or discipline. But yeah, they might be from like a specific art movement, and they might have a very specific philosophy on what they think art is. And I'm not even just talking about like I don't know, white animation professors hating anime or something. I'm talking about just in general. Like your school might have like professors that are all like, I don't know, like Bauhaus artists or something, and they believe in minimalism or something, right? So like if you go to that school and train under them, you'll just think that's what all art is. But you gotta just like make sure you're consuming as much diverse art as possible, just so you know that there's other stuff out there. Because that was something I could have benefited more from. I only really had like the art that I was shown in art school to compare myself to, so I just constantly thought my art was just bad. It was just like bad art, and I was always like, why is my art so bad? Like why can't I just draw like all these like Disney artists? It makes me so sad. Like I just can't do it. And then I started going on Twitter and seeing like people in the TV animation industry who draw so differently than artists in feature, and I was like, whoa, I kind of draw like these artists. Like maybe I'm not a terrible failure after all. So yeah, just like even finding like one or two artists out there who draw like you is just so like comforting. So yeah, I'd recommend that. Like realize that like art school, like your success in art school also is not going to affect your life like that much. Like it might help give you like a head start if you do really well in art school, but like there's so many like successful people in the industry who like didn't go to art school or like did really badly in art school. So just like remember that, like if you're ever really stressed out, like because it's so like common when you're in art school and things are going tough to be like, oh my god, I'm never gonna get a job, I'm a failure, I'm gonna be poor and homeless, like my life is ruined. And it's like not gonna be like that. Don't worry, it's just art school. It's just 4 years of your life, and like, you know, it's like there's so much more to the world than just art school, you know. It's such a tiny window, and it's your only window into the professional art world, but you know, it's not the only one. Alright, when designing this character, how did you know when you got to the that's it point? Oh my god, this question, man. So I have literally been working on these characters for like 5 years, so maybe like this isn't the best question to ask me, but basically I came up with their designs, and then I basically just drew them like over and over and over and over and over again. And like eventually I'll usually get to a point where you'll realize that like maybe some part of them is like really hard to draw, and you'll decide to make it simpler, you know. Or something else, you know. So I can show you actually like her current iteration is like based. I'll show you a drawing of her I did a year ago. So let's see. So this is like her old turnaround that I didn't finish from like a year ago. So as you can see, her proportions are a lot. I mean, they're a little cuter, but she kind of looks like a third grader, which made me really uncomfortable. But I kind of just found from drawing her a lot that that I prefer to draw her a little more realistic. So there's some things I kept, like I kept how I drew her sneakers for the most part. And I kind of kept how I simplified her hair. But I want her to look more adult. But when I was doing that design, I kind of wanted to push some things to be a little more exaggerated and cartoony. So I think the main way you see that is through her like shoes being kind of larger and her hair being kind of like tall and piled in a way that like you wouldn't really see on like a real person. But I can also show you like her older design, I think, from like several years ago. She used to have like different proportions. I'll just like draw them for you because I don't want to pull up my old artwork. But I think her face was like a lot rounder, and I'm trying to like draw what she used to look like. Her hair actually didn't change that much. For her, I tried stylizing her braid like this, which, because I was lazy, but the more I looked at it, the more it bothered me, and like, because I know that's not what a real braid looks like. And I think the big difference is I used to draw her eyes kind of more like cat eyes. Like, I drew her like this, and like, this is kind of like her old proportions when I was in like art school. Wow, they look so weird now. And after drawing her over and over again, I just kind of wanted to make her look a little older, so I kind of round out her face more, but I also decided I wanted to make her eyes look really big and cute, too. Like, I wanted her to be cuter. And then, like, I don't know, I kind of gave her this, like, cat mouth, which I, like, always kind of stuck to, because I just thought it was really cute. And I think it just captures her personality more, because she's kind of like, oh my god, this drawing's coming out really weird. And she's just kind of, like, an excited character, you know? So, she just has so much excitement. But I think, like, making her eyes round was, like, a really good choice for her personality, because it's, like, I don't know, I just, like, wanted people to think she was cute, that's kind of it. But yeah, I think this current iteration of her still took like a while before I hit it. And sometimes it's really just about drawing a character like hundreds of times and seeing like, because sometimes you add something, like I think I gave her a cat mouth like once as a joke, and then I couldn't stop doing it. Like, I just kept drawing her with a cat mouth over and over again. Now it's just like a part of her design. So sometimes that's how it be. And so yeah, same with like the round eyes. I used to have like a thing where all my characters like always only had like black people eyes. You know, because I didn't like coloring them in. But eventually that was something that like I changed. And like it was actually really hard for me to make that change first. And like every time I drew them, I would have to immediately like make a new layer and color their eyes in, or else like I wouldn't be able to like understand what I was looking at. But I finally got used to it now. But I like the rounder eyes because I think they're more expressive. And I also like being able to see their eye colors. I mean, this is kind of stupid and random, but I used to like draw them with black eyes. And then like when people drew like fan art of them or something, like they wouldn't know what their eye colors were. So instead of asking me, they would just like make up a random eye color. And it wouldn't be the right eye color because I have like canonical eye colors in my head. So I'd be like, oh, thank you, but that's not like her actual eye color, but it's okay. So I was like, alright, I'm gonna make their eye colors, like, visible. But that's kind of just, like, a dumb thing. Sarah in Life, how did you make her look adult? I basically made her head a little smaller, and I just made her a little less skinny, and stretched out her legs. So she used to be, like, less heads tall. And same with, like, the other character I will show you. He's, like, in a hidden layer under here. Here's like my other character. Here's Neil. But he used to also look a lot younger. He also had like a larger head and shorter legs, and I was like, I want him to look older, so yes. Hamster energy. Yeah, you know, I keep saying she's like a cat, but everyone else is like, she's like a hamster, and I'm like, you know what, she probably is just like a little hamster. Thank you, Sierra Blue. I honestly hated line art for a really long time. Not looking at it, but I hated drawing line art. It was so difficult for me. And for me, it ended up being because like my drawing skill actually wasn't that good. And it was like really apparent when I lined stuff that I actually didn't really understand how form worked and stuff. So I got a lot, like once I started forcing myself to like get better at like drawing, my line art got a lot better too. But I also like put a lot of time into just like focusing on line art. Like I would do the Inktober's every year, rest in peace. And like, but you know, like forcing myself to do like several inked pieces like every year went a long way. Especially doing that like, what, like 4 years in a row or something. So, but yeah, line art used to be like the worst part of drawing for me. I would do anything to avoid doing line art. Like I used to like adopt like a super painterly style so I didn't have to do line art, and it just cost me a lot of time down the road. And in the end, like my stuff didn't look good because the structure underneath wasn't good. So yeah, I finally faced my arch nemesis, and now I work mostly in line art, but I still do like lineless stuff when I work on like a lot of like non-character stuff. So. Yeah, like this comic was hard to get to this point, because I'm only just starting to like actually make the real thing. But the story itself, and all the other stuff, like I was working on for like years before this. So I kind of first started working like and making these characters about like 5 years ago. So when I was like writing, I would literally, I remember I wrote the first draft of this story when I took the subway home from work, because I used to work in New York City. I would just like keep a notebook with me, and I would like write like cool plot stuff that I could think of, and then I would like draw artwork at night when I got home, which is really hard. I like now I have a really hard time drawing personal art like after work, especially because I tend to get too into it. So like, because I was like, before I left my previous job, I was drawing, like that's like when I started drawing these guys a lot, and like it was pretty grueling because I would only have like a certain amount of free time each night, and I would just have to like stop myself in the middle of a drawing when I was getting really into it, because I knew I had to go to sleep and I would want to work on it more, and like it'd be really hard to pick up again the next day, you know. It can be really hard to get back into the groove. But, you know, I did make like a pretty decent amount of work with them too in the beginning, but it was kind of hard to do anything that was longer term, so most of what I do is just like cute doodles and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if that really like helps you, but I would just say, oh yeah, make a schedule. Oh my god, I think that's probably the thing that helps the most. And not even necessarily a schedule, but like I would say actually this is some really good advice I can give you. I actually have like a spreadsheet of like every single thing I need to do for the comic. So when I was writing, I broke down every single chapter that I had to write, and I just had on a spreadsheet, and as I finished each one I could check it off. So if I had free time, I'd be like, what should I do now? I'd look at the spreadsheet and I'd be like, oh, I still have to write chapter 12, and like I would just do that. And like you can do the same thing for art, which is what I did with that comic I'm working on with my friend. We have like a spreadsheet of all the assets that need concept art, and like every week we would just pick one thing and work on that. So just by doing things in like an order like that, I think goes a long way, especially because whatchamacallit, I think like when you're a creator and you're working on like your own project, it's so easy to just fall into what I kind of call like world building hell, or like concept art hell, where like all you do is just make like concept art and world build, and then you never end up making a story, and you can like literally burn like decades of your life doing this and never make anything to show for it, or like anything that you can show people. Like it's all like in your head. So I feel like by making like a spreadsheet of like things you actually need to make, that's probably will go the longest way to making sure like you're spending your time doing stuff that will like get you directly closer to your goal. So But yes, for people who are new here, these are my characters from my comic. This girly here that I'm drawing is named Alexis, or Lex for short. She is a photography major in college. She's like a sophomore, I think. I should know this, but I forgot because I'm nervous. And she is really into conspiracy theories. No, basically, she really likes Pinterest aesthetics and Tumblr aesthetics. Even though that's kind of an outdated thing now, but it wasn't when I was writing this comic 4 years ago. Let me hide this sketch. I think this looks better. Alright, I'll just start coloring it, whatever. So this is a turnaround I'm working on. I will hide this for 1 second. This is my other character, Neil. Here he is. I think this canvas is flipped. Anyways, yeah, they're classmates. He's a junior, she's a sophomore. They don't really know each other at the start of the story, but they meet. I'm like not doing a good job of selling the story. Anyways, the plot is that they're investigating like a weird like local legend, like a sort of urban legend, and it kind of escalates, and they end up lost for like a week in the woods, and that's that's the plot. Great, I'm glad it sounds fun. I still have had a hard time summing up sometimes because it's not like a lot of the stuff that inspired me are things that like don't really have like very simple terms to sum up, because I basically was really inspired by like a lot of like spooky stories I read on like No Sleep and stuff, like on Reddit, and a lot of those things, like that whole genre of like kind of like supernatural horror doesn't really have a name yet. It's very like Lovecraftian, I would say. Like this yeah, it's kind of like creepypasta-ish, but it's like where it's kind of like cosmic horror in the sense it's like horror of the unknown, but there's nothing necessarily overtly supernatural looking. So there's no like monsters or aliens or anything, but it's more of just like something is not right, you know, like that kind of thing, where it's like the world looks the same, but you just feel that it's wrong. Like, you know, like the whole like backrooms shit, but if the backrooms instead of the backrooms was just like, you know, the weird patch in the forest. Hell yeah. So, yeah, I can show you guys the actual like pilot comic in a second. And that's what I'm gonna be working on for the next 2 days. I keep saying this, but just since there's like new people coming in every so often, if I don't finish this turnaround in today's stream, I would not be finishing it tomorrow. I'll just finish the rest off stream. I plan on spending the rest of the stream, the next 2 streams, working on the actual pilot comic instead. So yeah. I'm only actually working on this one on stream because, well, one, I thought people would be interested in seeing like my character process, but also because I had like another deadline I needed to make. So yeah, I didn't get to finish her turnaround like I expected to. And this is supposed to go on. Oh, I forgot her hand. Okay. But yeah, this, like, I was supposed to have like their updated turnarounds on my website, and I just like didn't get around to finishing them. So like, don't go on that part of my website. I say, as like I have a direct link to it on my Lightbox booth that like thousands of people have probably already seen today.
Yeah.
For your webcomic, how many pages are you trying to have done before your first post? So, I think on average people do recommend like 3 or 4 weeks worth of updates as a buffer. So, for me, I have like a pilot comic, which is like the first chapter, and I'm gonna try to see like how long it takes me to draw it, and kind of estimate based on that, because my pilot chapter I think is probably I'm probably gonna split it into multiple episodes on Webtoons, because I don't think I can draw 1 chapter a week. I think I would die. And I notice on average, I think a lot of Webtoon updates, when you try to compare them to like traditional comic chapters and pages, are probably about like maybe 4 or 5 pages per chapter, especially if you like break it down and really milk it by having each one of the like the panels appear like on screen one at a time as you scroll. So but yeah, I'm hoping, so yeah, I definitely do want to have like 3 or 4 weeks of updates ahead of time, and I don't know exactly how many pages that's gonna be yet. Like I said, I think I'll just have to estimate that depending on how my first chapter goes. Speaking of which, I don't really want to draw a side view on screen. I think it's kind of boring, so I can show you guys the comic. Oh, here it is. Whoa! So yeah, this is what I have sketched out so far. It looks so rough. So yeah, what station am I listening to? I just have like a Spotify playlist for my comic. So, oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm thinking about which page I should work on first. Something that makes me the least nervous. You know, I'll just work on like maybe this page. I'm gonna work on the middle panel because it's really easy and it won't make me nervous to work on it. At least I hope not. cool. Okay, for Joaquin and I would say like start really simple with your expressions. So like see how like for them all like in all my thumbs they have like dot eyes and stuff. I feel like when you simplify your expression that much, it makes it really easy for you to convey it. And you can actually get a lot of mileage out of like let me just draw like a bunch of like faces. If like a face is like versus like, you know, like these two expressions are already like pretty like expressive as far as like stickmen go, and like if your expression can read at this level of simplicity, then it'll also be able to read at like, you know, like in a more complicated expression. So like, you know, this is like, you know, you know, like you get what I'm getting at. So I feel like if you just like learn how to just communicate using like the most basic expressions, like using only like dot eyes, like a circle mouth, and like eyebrows, at least like that's that's my advice, you know. It's like really good practice. And like a lot of times, honestly, like when I'm drawing like a more complicated expression, I will like draw it directly on top of like the dot eyes version, because oftentimes like the dot eyes version like completely nailed exactly the expression I want, and it's actually harder to do it with like the more proper anatomy. So I'll have to go through several times using proper anatomy what I was able to do like instantly using simpler expressions. So that's my advice. But actually there's some stuff like all this like texture on the text bubble and the borders. This is actually all from Clip Studio Paint. Like I did not do these by hand. They have this really cool like I guess like stroke option for these things called like spray or something. So I'll like even show you, like this is all like, you know, it's all like vector based, which is really cool. So like I didn't draw any of that stuff, but it matches like the texture of my brush really well. So I'm like, great, I'll take it, you know, saves me a lot of work. Alright, well, it's 6 p.m., so I think I'm gonna call it a night and take a break. But thank you so much to everyone who came to the stream. It was really fun drawing and answering everyone's questions. Hopefully I'll see a bunch of you guys tomorrow and Sunday.